Well, ladies and gentlemen, moving swiftly on, this should be, if we get through it quickly enough, part 10 and the final part, looking at the press reports. However, they skip quite a bit, so therefore I'll need to go back and, as I say, continue looking at the Stephanie Van Groll versus Ken Kratz civil suit that was decided upon ultimately by William Griesbach. So anyway, let's go straight into something I did want to check, and that was that the last item I read out was from Monday, January the 17th, 2011. The former Calumet County District Attorney, who resigned after a sexting scandal, says he's immune from a civil lawsuit filed by a crime victim who claims he sexually harassed her. Ken Kratz says he was a public official at the time of the alleged harassment. He's claiming absolute immunity and qualified immunity. Those are legal doctrines that shield government officials in certain cases from being sued for a violation of a person's constitutional rights. And then when I read the first part of the decision by William Griesbach, it mentioned a Rule 12 B6 and a Rule 56 B6, which I said are various rules, and I wondered if those were to do with the absolute and qualified immunity. It's not, it's just to do with procedure. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that because it confused me at the time, so I needed to check up. Anyway, moving forward, as I say, it jumps a bit. March 28th, 2011, the Wisconsin Justice Department says it won't file criminal charges against a former prosecutor accused of sending racy text messages to a domestic abuse victim. Former Calumet County District Attorney Ken Kratz resigned in October after the Associated Press reported he sent 30 text messages to a domestic abuse victim trying to strike up an affair while he prosecuted her ex-boyfriend on a strangulation charge. Then Governor Jim Doyle began removal proceedings against Kratz, but Kratz quit instead. The Justice Department reopened an investigation into Kratz. However, after earlier concluding no criminal wrongdoing, the agency says 15 women alleged improprieties by Kratz, including 2 who said they had sexual contact with him. Kratz's attorney says he believes the agency made the right decision. April Fool's Day, 2011. A new batch of documents released by the Wisconsin Department of Justice show a former Calumet County District Attorney frequently engaged in sexually suggestive behaviour while in office. The Appleton Post-Crescent reports Friday that while state prosecutors said Monday the behaviour did not violate the law, it apparently did make some women who worked with Kratz uncomfortable. Among the 150 pages of documents released Friday, some show Melissa Ruskovich approached Kratz for help in receiving a pardon for a drug conviction. We know all about Maria Ruskovich. She was reportedly freaked out by a text message from him asking how she would, quote, please him between the sheets. Remember that one. Kratz faces a civil lawsuit by Stephanie Van Groll, a domestic abuse victim who alleges Kratz sexually harassed her via text messages. Jumping to November of 2011, November the 30th, 2011, the state office that oversees lawyer discipline says the Wisconsin Supreme Court should suspend a former prosecutor's law license for making sexual remarks to nearly half a dozen women. The Office of Lawyer Regulation filed a complaint Wednesday alleging 11 counts of misconduct against former Calumet County District Attorney Ken Kratz. The OLR asked the court to suspend Kratz's license for 6 months. Kratz resigned in October 2010, that's 13 months previously, after the Associated Press reported he sent racy text messages to a domestic abuse victim. The OLR quietly closed the case against Kratz in March of that year without a formal review, saying his behaviour was inappropriate but didn't appear to be an ethical violation. The office reopened the case in September last year, bowing to intense public pressure following the Associated Press's story. As I say, I can't help thinking that eventually Kratz gets undone by public opinion, by the media, doing what they should do and reporting what they should report on. And which makes me think that in Stephen Brendan's case, once the public opinion in Calumet, Manitowoc, Wisconsin in general, once the public can see how appalling Kratz is and what an appalling conviction of Stephen and Brendan it actually is, then I feel then we will finally shift the focus of attention. The media will suddenly realise they've been backing the wrong horse, and then we're going to start to really see things change. Moving on to December 13th of 2011, a federal sexual harassment lawsuit against former Calumet County District Attorney Ken Kratz will not be thrown out. As I say, this relates to going back to the decision by William Griesbach. So I'll continue these and then we'll go back and look at the decision in full. Stephanie Van Groll is suing Kratz for sending racy text messages while he prosecuted her ex-boyfriend for domestic abuse in 2009. The 27-year-old claims Kratz violated her constitutional equal protection rights. This summer, Kratz filed a motion asking for the case to be dismissed, saying he did not violate Van Groll's constitutional rights. However, United States District Judge William Griesbach, based in Green Bay, denied Kratz's motion on Monday. Kratz's attorney, Rob Bellin, told the Post-Crescent that he and Kratz will discuss whether to ask the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals for a review. Where have I heard of the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals before? Another update, January 19th, 2012, a former Wisconsin prosecutor accused of trying to spark an affair with a domestic abuse victim wants the state Supreme Court to toss a complaint against him because state regulators already dismissed the case once. Oh, isn't that typical? Eh? They got it wrong the first time, so they should get it wrong again. Ken Kratz resigned from his position as Calumet County District Attorney in 2010 after the Associated Press reported he sent a series of racy texts to a young domestic abuse victim. The State Office of Lawyer Regulation declined to discipline him. The office reopened its investigation, however, in the wake of the Associated Press's story, and in November filed a complaint with the Supreme Court asking the justices to suspend Kratz's law license. Kratz argues in documents filed Thursday the Supreme Court should dismiss the complaint in part because the OLR already cleared him. May 14th, 2012, a former Wisconsin prosecutor accused of sending racy text messages to a domestic abuse victim has filed for bankruptcy. Ken Kratz's attorney William Woodrow filed the petition in federal court in Green Bay on April the 5th. According to court records, Kratz says he has as many as 49 creditors and between $500,000 to $1 million in liabilities. Oh dear, what a shame, Ken. Kratz resigned from his $100,000 position as Calumet County District Attorney in 2010 after the Associated Press reported he tried to spark an affair with a woman while he prosecuted her ex-boyfriend domestic abuse. The woman has filed a federal sexual harassment suit seeking unspecified damages against Kratz. The bankruptcy filing levelled an automatic stay on all creditors' actions against him, though. The woman's attorney, Michael Fox, didn't immediately return an email Monday. Of course, we know that Ken Kratz is enjoying the revenue from his latest edition of his novel. Maybe not enough to pay for that Caribbean cruise, but probably enough to half fill his tank with petrol. Moving on, Thursday, June the 14th, 2012. The agency that oversees Wisconsin lawyers has dropped 3 misconduct counts against a former prosecutor accused of rampant sexual harassment. The Office of Lawyer Regulation had filed 11 misconduct counts against Ken Kratz. He could lose his law license for 6 months. OLR attorney Tom Basting told case referee Robert E. Kinney Thursday the department won't pursue a count accusing Kratz of creating a conflict of interest by pursuing a relationship with a woman while he was prosecuting an ex-boyfriend for domestic abuse. The agency also won't pursue 2 counts accusing Kratz of soliciting another woman seeking to help with a pardon. Kratz has argued he removed himself from the domestic abuse prosecution and the woman seeking a pardon lied. A hearing on the remaining counts is set for Tuesday. One of the interesting things about reading through the documents is that eventually Kratz has to pay the full cost of the hearings, about $24,000. One of the things he tries to argue is that because they obviously there had been investigations into all of the counts, because some of them were dropped, that he then shouldn't have to pay for all of the costs because some of the counts weren't actually gone against him. He even loses that one. Wait till you see what happens in the as I say, the decision of Griesbach, and also the decision by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Some of the wording in there is very, very good, very, very strong. Moving on, Friday, June the 15th, 2012, the office that oversees attorney conduct in Wisconsin has decided to drop 2 more misconduct charges against a former prosecutor accused of rampant sexual harassment. The Office of Lawyer Regulation filed 11 misconduct charges against former County District Attorney Kratz in November. The charges allege he tried to solicit a domestic abuse victim, had sex with a woman he prosecuted for theft, and made sexual remarks to 2 county social workers. The office wants the state Supreme Court to suspend Kratz's law license. A hearing has been set for next week. OLR attorney Tom Basting has dropped 3 counts against Kratz ahead of the hearing. On Friday, he said he has agreed to drop 2 more counts, and Kratz has agreed to plead no contest to the remaining 6. So obviously there was some sort of fudge going on there. But eventually he faces the 6 charges. And I say he tries to get his costs reduced, and they don't. I think we're nearly finished. This is June 15th, 2012, 35 minutes later, a former Wisconsin prosecutor accused of rampant sexual harassment has agreed to plead no contest to 6 ethics violations. The State Office of Lawyer Regulation filed a complaint against former Calumet County District Attorney Ken Kratz in November, alleging 11 breaches of state Supreme Court attorney conduct rules. The complaint alleges Kratz solicited a domestic abuse victim, had sex with a woman he prosecuted, and made sexual remarks to other women, and asked the court to suspend his law license. A hearing is set for Tuesday. Office of Lawyer Regulation attorney Tom Basting agreed to drop 5 counts, including 2 connected to the sexual assault allegations that he dropped Friday. Kratz agreed to plead no contest to the remaining 6 counts. June 19th, 2012, a former Wisconsin prosecutor accused of rampant sexual harassment says he was addicted to sex and prescription drugs. The Appleton Post-Crescent reports former Calumet County District Attorney Ken Kratz testified in a State Office of Lawyer Regulation hearing Tuesday. His sexual compulsions didn't affect his professional life until 2009, when prescription drugs lowered his inhibitions, and he tried to spark an affair with a domestic abuse victim through a barrage of text messages. Ken, that's bullshit. You were harassing women way back, long before, way back to 1998, 1999. In fact, there's even suspicion that you left the lacrosse attorney's job under a bit of a cloud. But of course, it's typical of him, isn't it? To blame, to come up with any excuse he can to blame anything. One of the most interesting paragraphs we got to look forward to is, I think it's number 48 of the decision by the Supreme Court to show that Ken Kratz has provided no evidence whatsoever that he was addicted to these prescription drugs. And if you remember, it was actually one of his victims that told him that she was addicted to prescription drugs. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Okay, moving forward, July 30th, a special referee is recommending a less severe punishment for a former Wisconsin prosecutor accused of sexual harassment. Retired Judge Robert Kinney issued a report Monday recommending a 4-month suspension of former Calumet County District Attorney Ken Kratz's law license. The Wisconsin Office of Lawyer Regulation is seeking a 6-month suspension of Kratz's law license for sending text messages to a crime victim seeking a relationship. Kratz is seeking just a formal reprimand. WLUK reports Kinney noted other license suspensions of 6 months or more involved more serious conduct, and that Kratz is unlikely to reoffend. Dear oh dear. Kratz contends he's suffered enough and deserves a chance to rebuild his career. The report follows a hearing held last month. The Wisconsin Supreme Court will decide what punishment, if any, is appropriate. February the 12th, 2013, a former Wisconsin prosecutor accused of sending racy text messages to a domestic abuse victim is due back in court next week to settle sexual harassment allegations. Ken Kratz resigned from his position as Calumet County District Attorney in 2010 after the Associated Press reported he tried to spark an affair with a woman while he prosecuted her ex-boyfriend for domestic abuse. The woman has filed a federal lawsuit alleging Kratz sexually harassed her. She's seeking unspecified damages. A trial is set to begin in the case on February the 19th in Milwaukee. The State Office of Lawyer Regulation has recommended the State Supreme Court suspend Kratz's law license for 6 months. The court has yet to issue a decision on the recommendation. So, final one, Wednesday, February the 13th, 2013. Federal court records show a civil lawsuit filed against a former Calumet County District Attorney has been settled. Ken Kratz was accused of sexual harassment by a domestic abuse victim who said she received racy text messages from him while he was prosecuting her ex-boyfriend. Kratz resigned from his position as DA in 2010 after the Associated Press reported he tried to spark an affair with the woman, Stephanie Van Groll. Kratz asked for the case to be dismissed in 2011, arguing the flirtation text messages weren't sufficient to support Van Groll's assertion that her constitutional rights were violated. However, WLUK TV says Van Groll was seeking unspecified damages. No details of the settlement were released. A trial was scheduled for next week in Green Bay. Kratz's attorney, Ted Tornell, did not immediately return a call seeking comment. My goodness, Ken Kratz gets through a lot of attorneys, doesn't he? Maybe people that don't want to be associated with him. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. It always makes me laugh that you've got guilters out there who are pinning their hopes on the fact that Ken Kratz got it right. Unfortunately for the guilters, Ken Kratz has zero credibility. He has completely lost his credibility. Anybody reading his book should do so realizing this fact. You cannot believe a word of what that liar has written. It's as simple as that. Decide who you're going to back. This case is definitely going to start turning towards truth and justice for Teresa, Stephen and Brendan. Anyway, as I say, we'll continue to look at further, the decision by William Griesbach. We've had part one. We'll probably have at least half a dozen parts to go through because it's a very long decision as well. Anyway, that's it as far as the press reports from this particular site called NBC15.com. In fact, I will try and leave the link underneath, and then you can go and have a look yourself and review all of the press reports. Okay, catch you again soon. Bye for now.